Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning. Welcome to a Monday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Got a good show lined up today. We got a little tweak in today's program. We'll have JC, and then the second portion, we'll have Buddy Martin join us today instead of tomorrow. Got a lot to talk about. If you missed it, Jud Fabian was picked in the second round, as was Hunter Barco. Fabian to the Orioles, Barco to the Pirates. I'm not sure who else was drafted. Grant Holloway wins the World Championship in the high hurdles, and that continues to go on for the next few days out in Eugene, Oregon. It's pretty cool if you haven't watched it on TV. And then once again, the British Open was outstanding. Cam Smith, the Australian, one of the greatest rounds of golf I've ever seen. I felt horrible for Rory McIlroy. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline. I'm back from St. Andrews now, and I'm in Atlanta now for the SEC Media Days, which cranks up today at noon when you got Ole Miss, LSU, and Missouri rolling in. JC, good morning. How are you?
Good. Yeah. Man, you must have got that red eye and just
we fly private, JC.
Yes, that's very impressive. Well, I tell you saw quite a match. How would you like to be 19 under with an eagle on the last hole that you play and not win the British Open? And the thing is that everybody before him, Cam Young that is, probably would have won the British Open with that kind of golf. And yet this guy, Cameron Smith, who you picked, this fellow had, just try to conceptualize this. He had 12 putts on the back nine. 12 putts. And we're talking about a back nine where anything right is bad or out of play, penalty, out of the tournament kind of thing. So you have to hit high fades and so forth. And he does that fine, as does Cameron Young. But to not have that, you basically cannot hit it right at all. And so, guys who draw the ball are in trouble in those scenarios. And yet here we have Cameron Smith the course, I don't know how they said that the course was set up great and all this and all that, but there was no defense of that course. And those scores were utterly absurd for a major, in my opinion, but taking nothing away from the way they played, all of them. McIlroy, Young, Fleetwood. Cameron Smith was just, to me right now, Scheffler may have been the golfer of the year to start the season, but I'm about to ready to vote for Cameron Smith to be golfer of the year. The up and down he had on 17 may have been the greatest two putts I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
it's virtually impossible to get two putts from where he was, and he did.
Yeah, the old course, it plays over 7,300 yards, but it's fast and firm.
It rolls forever.
But it has no defense if the wind didn't blow more than 10 miles an hour. You really can't do anything to that golf course. They're never going to do. They won't go back there until probably 7 or 8 more years. Yeah. But I'm convinced now.
Yeah.
That the walk on 18 is the greatest spectacle in all of sports. There's nothing like it. Here's what's interesting, and I felt horrible for Rory McIlroy. JC, listen to this.
I am.
Listen to this tweet. Rory has beaten or tied 98% of the golfers he has faced in all 4 majors this year and somehow didn't win any of them. Think about that.
Yeah. I don't know how much better you can play. He was the best player in the final round of the Masters, right? He was. He shot 62 or something ridiculous. And the only problem with yesterday is he just didn't make enough putts and he didn't make enough birdies. He shot a 70. But that takes away nothing from his first 3 rounds. The only problem was this guy shot 64. Smith was just, it's 64. So what are you going to do? 5 straight birdies? And again, the par on 17th may have been the best 2 putts I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he was dead, QB. That was what, a 15-footer he made, but just to get it to 15 feet from where he was, if you didn't see it, he was in front of the green with a bunker in front of him, and he had to put it to the right and make it go to the left. And it's just magic. It's just pure artistry. And he is, and then Cameron Young, my God, this guy could have just made 1 or 2 extra putts. He may have.
Well, he had about 3 holes the last 2 days that were disastrous.
I know,
but
and
he's only 25 years old. This is the first time in the history of the tour that all 4 major winners were under 30 years old. I'm telling you, it's a young man's game, dude. Rory's about the oldest guy that can compete against these guys. DJ, I used to love DJ's game, still do. I have a hard time rooting for DJ now because he's on that Tour 54. And I swear, if they throw money at Cam Smith, because I saw Greg Norman tweeting all this stuff about
we're going to buy
Australian and all this stuff. Oh, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Because they're talking about now where these guys are going to go start playing the Asian Tour, and they'll be allowed to get points or something like that. And did you see who's the Ryder Cup captain for them?
For who?
It's Henrik Stenson.
Well, the Ryder Cup, or you talking about the President's Cup of the Ryder? Cam Smith doesn't play in the Ryder Cup.
No. I'm off of Cam Smith. I'm saying, I believe Henrik Stenson is the Ryder Cup captain. He is joining the Live Tour and is no longer going to be the Ryder Cup captain. They're not going to allow it. Why would you do that? That's once in a lifetime deal.
Well, I agree, but these traditional metrics don't matter as much as the money. And I think you're seeing that in college football too, QB. Money talk. Money, the TVs, the television, the revenues. This is what's driving decisions.
Yeah, but they're not leaving and going and forming a new way of playing golf. I mean, it's not golf.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the little intricacies of that tour are, you could argue that, but certainly, I think, Henrik Stenson won the British Open, shot 20 under, just like Cam Smith in 2006.
He did?
Yeah, he was.
Because this was the lowest score. This was the lowest score in the history of all the majors.
No, there were 4 others that had 20 under scores that won majors.
I guess the Golf Channel was wrong.
Stenson won the British Open, I think, at 20 under in 2016 or something. Well, I mean, I saw the stat yesterday on the coverage after the match was over, after the round, and there were 4 names up there, and Stenson's one that I remember from 2016. But at that point, he's had one moment in his career, and that's it. And yet, I find it funny how, the value of racking up majors and titles and being, a part of history seems to be not necessarily taking a backseat to money, but money is driving more decisions now to do less traditional things. And that is playing golf the way they do on the Tour 54 and then going to Europe and Asia, as opposed to playing in these tournaments stateside where all the best golfers in the world are. So, listen, I think we've got the McIlroys and we've got the Fitzpatricks and we've got the Zalatorses and all these young guys that are probably going to stay put where they are and continue to make the PGA Tour the best tour on earth. But yesterday was just a real display of true, just absolute incredible.
Dudes want to compete. And really the only person on the Tour 54, as I like to call it, that can compete is DJ. The other ones are just, they need to take their money and go play their little charity events. So anyway, Sterling Thompson was drafted in the first round.
I saw that. By the Rockies.
Yeah, I missed that. JC, have you watched any of the World Track Championships?
No, I haven't. And that, it's like it's one of those sports that's hard to keep up with, and unless you're involved in it. But man, we've got some good names that are local that participate and win.
Well, the reason I brought it up is I've watched some of it here and there.
All the way.
I can't understand why. NBC covers a lot of the track, no matter where it is. This is the first time the World Championships have ever been held in the States. And it looks like a great event. But the 2 main announcers for NBC that do the Olympics, track and field, they're from another country. I don't understand it. They talk with a British accent.
Yeah. Well,
we can't bring Tom Hammond back.
Well, that's right. Olympic sports, QB, seem to be more popular internationally. They do. Nobody talks about track and field. Not that I know. Do you know anybody that talks a lot about track and field?
We've talked about it a little bit on here because Florida won the national title, and Grant Holloway's been on our show before. Yeah. But it is a very difficult sport to follow.
Yeah. Like swimming, QB, it's the same type of thing to me. It's the same damn thing. It's a race, and it's got different heats, and it's got different divisions and different types of races. And, track has other things that aren't necessarily races: javelin, shot put, high hurdle, the pole vault, the high jump, those kinds of, these are all Olympic sports. I get excited about them, about those sports once every 4 years. And I didn't even get excited the last time around because it was in China and nobody went really. So, because of COVID. So I think, Olympic sports are just hard for me, but yeah, we're all right. Believe me, I'll get over it. I think, we got 50 something days until the sport I love the most is starting up again on a regular season basis. And I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, how fast the season goes. And, we anticipate before you know it, we're in October and somebody's 4-0 and somebody's 2-2. And by the way, I was glad to see Anthony Richardson change his nickname. He's no longer going by AR-15. I think that was
people are still going to call him that. He's not selling the merchandise, is what it is.
Well, but he's going to change his brand. He's not using that nickname anymore. So I think that was smart on his behalf. And
he needs to go back to his old numbers. What he should do.
Well, he could, but what he should do is really let's just focus on scoring touchdowns and not throwing interceptions. And he'll have the system in place to where that won't happen as much. So that's what I care about.
Andy asked on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law, guys, with all the controversy around transgender swimming. Gosh dang it, it went away. Hang on. All right, listen to this. With all the controversy around transgender swimmer Leah Thomas, why did Penn nominate him as the NCAA Woman of the Year? It makes no sense.
Can you listen? If the women there aren't going to complain about it or protest it or make a big deal out of it, why would I? I couldn't care less what the University of Pennsylvania does with their women's sports, frankly. If they consider him a woman, who knows what is now or who is. He, him, they, them, it, that. It's fine. This guy wants to swim with girls. If the girls are okay with it, if the girls' parents are okay with it,
I think the girls should fight him. Start a fight in the locker room.
It doesn't feel like to me that maybe there is an uproar. I don't know. Look, this guy is the women's. Just the statement I'm making here. This guy is the women's swimmer of the year. Yeah.
No. I don't. Whatever. He won, or he was voted. I think he was just voted.
Nominated. You sure? Okay.
I think that's what Andy said. Well, regardless, it's stupid. John says Richardson will have to change his number if he doesn't want to be called that. His real number is number 2. I think he went to this. He changed his number to 15 for the marketing purposes. Quite honestly, he wore 2 in high school.
Well, there was another 15. At some schools you wouldn't be able to wear 15 again.
What schools?
Don't they retire?
Retiring numbers is the dumbest thing in all of the history of sports.
Well, don't some schools retire numbers?
Some do, but what I'm saying is, okay. So here's one reason retiring numbers is stupid. Okay. How many people text or email this show about recruiting?
I'm sure quite a few.
And bitch about recruiting on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if John Cornell was a five-time 5-star out of wherever and wanted to go to Alabama and you wanted to wear number 10, number 10 was retired, you're probably not going to want to go to Alabama. Kids want to wear numbers. I'm telling you.
That's how
people.
Kids are.
If you've never played or never been around kids, people do not understand this. They laugh just like you did. They laugh just like you did.
I don't know why numbers make the decision for kids these days.
Because JC, It could be a family number. It could be something that you've worn in every sport your entire life. It is your identity. I'm just telling you.
But a kid that hasn't been at a college yet doesn't have an identity, as far as I'm concerned. We all talk
my
about.
Point. You're not understanding my point. I'm telling you, it is huge in recruiting.
Okay.
So anybody that retires numbers, which I don't really know any schools that have retired numbers because of this reason right here.
Well, okay. Well, that's great.
But again, you're in the minority because you haven't been in that situation attached to numbers. It's just like I tell the story. Mm-hmm. Devin Bush, All-American, 5-star linebacker, wanted to play for the Gators. Bates had 44. He wasn't getting 44. He played at Florida State. It happens. It happens all the time.
So the numbers are now the issue, not the schools. Right.
It's not now. It's always been that way. Always. Well, see, John says when Ernie Sims went to Florida State, they had to bring out number 34 out of retirement for him because I'm telling you, it's a huge, huge deal. Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Doreen Weeby, a realtor with Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parrish, will provide you with fast, friendly, and reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. Got a text on the Titan MR text line from Bubba in Charlotte. He says, let's see how Brian Kelly has mastered his Southern accent over the last several months. Yeah, he's on the I think he's on the podium first today, Brian Kelly.
Yeah. I'm afraid I don't know the lineups. When does Florida go?
They go Wednesday.
When does Saban show up?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Sankey is the guy that's going to probably get the most poignant questions about the conference and so forth. But I don't think we're going to learn anything, and that's fine. I can tell you that the conference is stuck at 16. It's not going to go further than that anytime soon. There's no reason for it, and maybe there's a way that Texas and Oklahoma can get into this league by the 2024 season, which would be 3 seasons from now. That would be nice. But, really, I think the focus on all this realignment and all of these teams changing is just it's just too far out for anybody to really take seriously right now because, Texas and Oklahoma are going to play in the Big 12 for the next 2 years. So maybe. 2022 and 2023 are the next 2 years. We're going to have Cincinnati and those other 3 teams join the league in the Big 12. Maybe the ACC can poach some of the Big 12's Eastern teams like West Virginia. But I'm not sure what's going to happen from here. I really am at the point where the talking season is getting irritating to me, and I want to just get to the game soon. But we still have a couple weeks to go. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting today, too, because at the SEC Media Days, when the media, I believe they do their predictions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I saw again this weekend on Twitter. These are pretty, established writers at different places. I can't remember where they all write now. Yeah. But I'll be damned. It's embarrassing now, the more I think about it, where they have the Gators ranked. It's unbelievable. Well, fifth in the league in the East, 4th and 5th.
Well, where were they last year? Where'd they finish?
No, way down there. But I'm just saying, it's just hard to swallow. I don't think we're a great football team, but it's like majority of the world agrees that Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Georgia are better than the Gators.
Well, look. With the exception of Tennessee, those other teams beat the Gators. Now, Tennessee, I think if they had played the Gators later in the year, probably would have beaten them. But we all know what happened last year, and that's behind us. I think with the new coach, the new style of play, new everything, if the depth can stay in it, if the injuries don't get bad, Florida's going to be competitive against all those teams, I think, except maybe Georgia. I don't know. But Kentucky and Tennessee seem to be the hot buttons right now in the conference or in the East part of the conference because of the quarterbacks. And, Kentucky's got some running backs that are fast. They're big. Tennessee, I don't know what they got defensively, but they got a quarterback who can stretch the field. So I can see why you don't have a known commodity here yet at Florida. Richardson had a good game against LSU, but he got hurt a lot. And so who's he going to throw to? Well, Shorter needs to show up. This guy, Montrell, he needs to play. We don't know these things yet. Maybe Florida gets out and beats Utah and Kentucky, and all of a sudden now the Gators and Georgia are the big news in the East, right? So you got to do it on the field before people start talking about your QB. You know that.
Well, you don't have to tell me that. I just, I said, I'm definitely concerned.
I'll tell you, the first 2 games of the year, you're going to learn a lot. And I don't know if that's fair or not. Obviously, you probably would want to have a couple of games against the South Florida or a FAU to start the year. This is the first time, QB, I can remember in years and years and years where the Gators are literally jumping out of the gate against very good football teams. And weeks 1 and 2, just like that. I don't think they're tone setters for the rest of the year because I think teams change as the year progresses. Tennessee was a great example of that last year. But in the first 2 games, you're going to learn where Florida stands in many cases, I think, with in terms of talent and depth and everything else. These are physical teams. Cam Rising is the best quarterback you're going to see come into this building all season next year. He is the best quarterback you may see in the entire season. So watch what's coming. It's going to be very interesting to me to see how Florida lines up with them.
Greg says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Metal Law, CBS and Sports Illustrated have the Gators going 7-5 and losing to Florida State.
Well, 7-5 is something we talked about, and that seems to be the consensus number for me right now. Consensus number that I'm part of. A lot of other people agree with 7-5. I heard David the fellow you had a couple weeks ago, talk about 9-3. I think that is extremely wishful, but I don't think it's impossible. I do think, though, it's unlikely.
Scott has a Facebook Live question here. JC, you may know this better than me because you were back in the media at TV20 in these days.
I sure was.
He says, Scott says, Shane, do you remember what the media was saying about the 90 Gators prior to the season?
Yeah.
Were they down on y'all like they are now?
Well, I don't think they were. Remember, first of all, the media was very different in the 90s. We had nobody had these. Nobody had internet. It was a much different culture and world, and word didn't get out as quickly. You read the paper is what you did. You watched the 6 o'clock news that, you got to see
with the guy with the mustache.
That guy was pretty good, they say. But no, that changed. And it wasn't that Florida wasn't, people were down on Florida or anything. It was that the golden boy was coming home. Yeah, it was a real question of how would Steve Spurrier, who won a ACC championship at Duke, do at Florida? And obviously the thinking would be that, well, all of the resources at Florida give him a better chance to be successful. And the first thing he talked about when he came into the press conference room, I will never forget it. Bill Arnsparger was sitting right there. And Coach said, first thing we're going to do is get Miami on the schedule and turn that rug into grass. That's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to get the grass on the field, and we're going to play Miami. And that's what he got one out of those 2. He got one out.
He got the one that's most important, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it was unbearable. I mean, students back in the day at Florida Field would run out there and play tag football or touch football on that horrifying AstroTurf that Neil Anderson and John L. Williams and Lorenzo Hampton had to run on. And it was like, my God, how does Wilbur Marshall tackle people on this crap? It's as hard as this porch. But Coach Spurrier knew better, and he got that grass in there, and the rest, I think it saved you, QB. I don't think you would have wanted to play on that AstroTurf, and it certainly helped.
It was terrible.
I mean, when you got literally, you and Casey Weldon literally got dismembered in that Florida State game, the 14-9 game. If that had been AstroTurf, I don't think you people would have been you would have walked off the field. You would have been carried off the field. I
don't know why any major university would want to have any kind of turf field.
Well, they don't want to.
I understand from a maintenance standpoint, but I don't. There's nothing worse. Even the new stuff is terrible.
QB, what's more expensive? Taking care of somebody for the next 20 years health-wise, or giving them something to at least absorb the shock of the very violent sport called grass? Let's use the grass. And thank God you had grass in that 14-9 game, QB, because that was the most violent game I think I've ever watched in my life. and it was one of the best. So, yeah.
A lot of people here think we're going to go 8-4. Is there?
Okay, look, if it's 8-4, if it's 7-5, great. I'd love to hear what the 8 wins are, and maybe they'll go 8-4. It's right in the middle: 9-3, 7-5, 8-4. It can be either one of those. I think 9-3 is about a 10% chance. 8-4 is about a 40% chance, and 7-5 is about a 50% chance. That equals 100.
Got a text here on the Titan MR text line from Jimmy. Jimmy lives up in Sea Island. He says, "Hey, Shane, give me your comments. I read a quote from Denny Thompson, who trains quarterbacks, and said that Anthony Richardson, even if they changed the rules of football where the quarterback could not run, he would be a first-round draft pick."
Wait, what does that mean?
Look.
What does that mean?
He's saying that because this guy trains him, he's an elite thrower.
Okay, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. Yeah, we're gonna see that the game plans are going to be to run the ball first. That's how.
So we're gonna be a running football team.
Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I mean, if Utah's up 14-0, we'll see how he adjusts. But we'll just. I mean, he did okay in the LSU game throwing the football, but he also threw a bunch of interceptions last year when he had the chance to play.
Right, but regardless, you can tell if a guy's an elite thrower or not.
Yeah, you can.
There's 2 elite throwers in my mind in college football right now, just right off the top of my head: C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. They're elite throwers because they anticipate, they can make different types of throws, different trajectory.
Accurate.
We have to see that from Anthony. Anthony has a tremendous arm. That does not make you an elite thrower. I don't think people understand that.
I think it'll be nice, though, for Anthony going into the year knowing he's going to be the guy now. He doesn't have to deal with Emory Jones or Dan Mullen trying to screw him up. And he knows this is his gig. And that I think will help him because the reps are going to be there. Everything he's going to need to succeed will be there for him. And he doesn't have to worry about somebody on the other side of his shoulder.
I agree with that totally. All right, JC, let's get to this day in sports, which is brought to you by our friends at Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Beat the summer heat. Schedule your air conditioners tune up today, keeping you chill in the Florida heat far away. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Call them today, 352-376-2366. This day in sports, before we get to Buddy Martin, in 2021, the British Open was at Royal St. George. American Colin Morikawa became the first male in history to win his debut at 2 separate major events. Jordan Spieth by 2. That's pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
It just goes to show you those young dudes, man. There's so many good young players on tour.
And look at Smith. Smith, from a modest, humble farming family in Australia, is the only golfer since Jack to win the Tournament Players Championship and the British Open in the same year. 1978 is when Nicklaus did it. And here's Cameron Smith. That round he played yesterday, final round.
One of the greatest you'll ever see. You know what? He led a couple of the easy holes on the front 9. He didn't even birdie. And I was like, he has no chance. But boy, did he turn it on. All right, Lauren says, before we let you go, his 8 wins are Utah, Kentucky, or Tennessee, South Florida, Eastern Washington, Missouri, Vandy, South Carolina, and FSU. So
then what? Well, if he's got Utah, Kentucky as wins, what are the 4 losses? LSU, Georgia,
A&M.
A&M. Okay, that's the other one. All right, and what's the other one? He said 4. He
says we're either going to beat Tennessee or Kentucky. We're not going to beat them both.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, JC, good stuff. We'll talk to you later in the week, and we're going to get to Buddy Martin. You're watching and listening.
Say hi to Buddy
with Matthews in the morning. We'll be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra, State Farm Insurance. Doreen Wiebe, Realtor, Caldwell Banker, M.M. Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate. With premium brands like Escape Apology, Sushi Hana, Regal Cinemas, Kilwins, Le Macaron, Prime and Pro, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, where every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 2:30, you can get the hottest brunch in town. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to head to the Technomore Hotline now. We're going to be joined by good old Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show. A little tweak in the schedule today. We're going to have Buddy today instead of tomorrow. Good morning, Buddy. How are you?
Morning, Shane. Feels a little different on a Monday morning, which is usually Tuesdays, and glad to be with you again. Interested to hear what JC had to say about the good old days when he was there in 1990, as I was. And I remember one more thing, by the way. Spurrier did say that about Miami, about the grass, but he also forgot to mention Spurrier should bring back the blue jerseys. That was the third thing he said, which was good. So
yeah, which unfortunately, the blue jerseys aren't the same color blue as when we played.
They're a little different, aren't they?
They get lighter and lighter every year, and it's all because the other Nike schools, like the Boise States and Kentucky, that are Nike schools, they all have the same paint color or shade or whatever.
But there's a number to it. There's actually a number to that.
It's a Pantone or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But it's I hate it. If you look at the jerseys that I played in compared to the one now, it's a huge difference, and I wish they would go back to it, but they won't. But
you would know that you're a uniform guy, so you would pick up. That's a good little.
I don't like the new blue that we have.
Yeah.
Buddy, back to that. I'm glad you brought that back up. So our Facebook Live listener was asking because you got a new coach this year, but there's still a lot of negativity nationally. Not negativity, but I don't think people think the roster that they can win 7 or 8 games. What back in those days? I mean, I don't even remember what the record was the year before Coach took over. What was the media thinking that the 1990 team could do from a winning standpoint?
You have to remember what was going on, Shane. It was a dark time in Florida football history. They were afraid Florida might get the death penalty because of all the things that went on there during that time. People got to remember that. I mean, that was a perilous time for the Gator program. And anybody who coming in fresh was going to be welcome, but to have a legend like Steve Spurrier coming, even though we didn't really know how well he could coach yet. I mean, we thought he could. Those of us who were big Spurrier fans loved him at Tampa Bay, loved him at Duke, wrote about him, talked to him, whatever, thought he was going to be a good coach, but didn't really know what he could do there. And his resourcefulness, as you know, his ability to size up the situation, the fact that he inherited a lot of good players, which we did know that, but the program was going down the toilet. I mean, it was really in bad shape there with all the NCAA problems, although Galen Hall had some good years. And I will say this, here's how smart I was. Right before Galen Hall got fired, I thought I could see that, well, maybe they just ought to go ahead and re-up Galen Hall, whatever. And of course, they fired him the following week, I guess, after LSU. They started looking for a coach. And the thing about it was Spurrier almost didn't get the job. Bill Arnsberger did his dead level best to undermine that. He was trying, and I know because I talked to him a lot back in those days. And Spurrier was, he broke through at the end, only because of the interim president and a few other people came to the fore and said, we're going to get Steve Spurrier, and brought him here. There was some expectations. And the thing about it is, here's the thing about Spurrier, his optimism and his ability to size things up and his unique personality and the way he talked made it interesting and exciting. But no, nobody really had any idea what was ahead.
Greg has a question here for you, buddy, brought to you by Meldon Law. Buddy, what were the exact violations that Florida was being considered for the death penalty?
Well, I mean, here's the thing about it. There were so many of them. I want to say 100 and something, you name it, and they had it. And one reason is that Orangeburger just rolled over on the program and just gave him everything he could think of. And they were the ones that really stuck out primarily with the alleged payment of players. The guy from Palatka who escaped, somebody remembers his name.
John L. Williams?
No. The guy
from Palatka. But it had something to do with some child support payments, right?
Yes. And allegedly somebody paid that, and they accused the university. And Spurrier says to this day, he thinks that was just a guy who was a local booster, a friend. And you can do that if you're a friend of the individual, and he's been supporting him. And there's a child that kept him from going to jail. That was one of the big things. And there were others. There was all kinds of, I'd have to go look at the list again, but there was a litany of 100 and some odd, and it was.
But basically, everything that was happening then is legal today.
Yeah, exactly. And there were two guys, and I talked to Charlie Pell about this. Two guys on that staff that he got, young guys when he first came in there, who were hot shots, and they did most of the damage. And the reason I know that is that Mike Shanahan was an assistant coach, and he told me those guys were just out of control. And Charlie didn't have control, and they were just doing all kind of crap, stuff going on, and mostly related to recruiting was going on. So yeah, it was kind of a mess. But but nobody had any idea what was there. Who knew? Man, it was a great surprise. It always is when you go under the radar, isn't it? I mean, when you don't expect much. So this is why I think this team, I wrote this last week, could be fun. I don't know what the record will be. Like you said, I'm hearing anywhere from 6 wins to 9 wins. And some of the stuff, you're exactly right, Shane. Some of the stuff is ridiculous that being written. And who is it being written by? Who are these people? I mean, it could be anybody off the street, some of them. And the really smart guys, the guys I trust, like Tony Barnhart, I think they all think Florida's got a legitimate shot at making some noise. But you're right. They're picking them. I wrote last week, they're picking them just ahead of Vanderbilt. And they're right in there with Missouri. I mean, how did Florida get to be such a terrible program overnight? I don't know.
Well, speaking of that, John, I did see this. I'm going to read it briefly, what John says on Facebook Live here. Not sure if anyone saw the blue chip ratio by 24/7 Sports. Florida's rosters is 60% of blue chips, one of the top 15 rosters in the nation, according to 24/7. He said, I know Shane will disagree with that stat. I will. I'm not going to disagree with the percentages or whatever the 4 and 5 stars. I'm telling you what my eyes tell me. I watched a lot of football, and those players are not SEC caliber players, and they haven't played SEC caliber level yet. Now, maybe Billy Napier will get them, but I'm just going by what my eyes tell me. And when you go 6 and 7, you're not a top roster. I mean, it's that simple. So, but again, you got a new staff, new lease on life. Things could change this year, but I'm just going.
Well, I don't want to carry this on too long because I know we have limited time. But let me just point out one thing. These were players that were above average, okay? And some of them were pretty good. They were poorly coached. If you could ever go into any program in the SEC, and I remember asking the question about the crowd noise in Kentucky, and Mullins, oh, yeah, we got it all. And the terrible offensive line play, jumping up, illegal motion play. How many were 9, 8, whatever? You can't win. And almost still won the game. They were terrible, and they were terribly coached. So I don't blame it on the kids. I blame it on the coaches.
No, I will agree. We were not coached very well, but we also didn't play great. And a lot of that, I mean, from a talent, we will see this year. Yeah. I believe in this staff 110%. But like I told you, there's parts of this roster that concern me. and I hope I'm wrong.
Oh, no, I think we all know that. Yeah, I agree. There's no doubt about it. They do. There's no question. But you have to believe a little bit in magic. You have to believe a little bit in that. What's possible. And that's why. And by the way, just I say before we run out of time, my Ocala baseball boys rock. I'm telling you, how about that? Both Sterling Thompson, who was the highest outfielder ever picked in the Major League draft of Sully's.
They project him to play outfield, right, in the majors?
I don't think he's been projected, but yeah, I would think.
Because he's a true outfielder.
He's a decent middle infielder. I mean, he really is not bad, you know. And then Judd Fabian was 67th overall to the Orioles. Mm-hmm. What's good about that, they come to Tampa a lot. We'll get to see him play a lot if he makes the big club, which he would. So how about that? 2 Ocala boys being drafted in the top 67. And I just want to shout out to my 2 boys there and congratulations and happy for them.
No, it is a fun time for those guys, and we wish them a lot of luck. That's a hard sport to make it to the big boys, and hopefully they will do that. Buddy, we got a text here on the Tightening Mark text line. It's a long one. It's from Greg up in Alabama. He's a Gator fan. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, and it's basically referring to AR Anthony Richardson sending a tweet out yesterday about he's not going to sell any more AR-15 merchandise. Doesn't want to be called that. But his like I said, I'm paraphrasing, very long. He wants to know, it's very similar to Buddy from a brand standpoint with Gator Bait. You still have Gator Bait. People still talk Gator Bait at the stadium, and people are still going to call him AR-15. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, I think Anthony wore number 2 in high school. He wore 2 as a freshman at Florida. Mm-hmm. I think he changed. Somebody must have gotten his head about selling stuff to change his brand number to 15 to make it AR-15, which I get. But obviously, we also understand why he's changing it back and not wanting that. But I guess what Greg was asking is, what are the similarities of what you went through with Gator Bait to what he's going through now?
It's a great question. I thought about that a lot in the last 24, 48 hours, a lot. And we could spend the rest of the program and then some on this subject because it is an important point. And I acknowledge that we did have the issue of the Gator Bait thing. And he's right, because in this country right now, it's all about symbols. Anything is a symbol. People get freaked out about, you know. And you see it. That's why I love, by the way, the British Open, which we have talked about. I love the history of that and what goes on there. And there's so many people associate tradition and symbols sometimes with politics, and I hate that. Gator Bait, I'm not going to go into it, but we did address the issue, and there were some people who said, "Well, that comes from, you know, that comes from days when American black kids, children were thrown to the gators for Gator Bait to lure the alligators." I think it's a crock, but maybe you have.
I don't buy that one.
Never heard it before from anybody I've ever known except some myth, you know, and they want to change the name because of that. That's a far cry from a weapon that's used to kill children right now. And that's the issue, whether you like it or whether you don't. And you can find somebody to disagree or agree with almost anything. And I know what's going to happen. You watch what happens. It's coming up on Wednesday when Anthony Richardson gets there. There's going to be a lot of talk about that whole branding issue of AR-15, which, by the way, aside from the obvious, is a great name. It's his initials and his number. I mean, it's perfect in that regard, easy to say. But the fact is that it's a smart move, because just like when Coach Spurrier, your coach, went to Columbia and there was a Confederate flag flying over the state capitol, and he said, "Need to take that damn flag down." Now, Coach Spurrier was born in the South, and, you know, obviously there's a lot of people who had connections, but he's right, because if it upsets people that much and it's that important, then get rid of it, whatever. This is a weapon to kill children. I'm not saying it was a gun itself, but it still is a symbol, like the flag. I mean, if you have a tattoo of Confederate flag on your forehead, what do you think that's going to do? You know, and I love the nickname, and I think it's a smart move because it just avoids the issues and the problems. We worked through Gator Bait. We took a poll. We asked people. We waited. We talked about it. We prayed about it, everything else. And finally, the decision was made. It isn't what people say it is. There's no question that AR-15s have been used to shoot children in these buildings. So this not even remotely connected, but that is the symbol, and Greg's right about that. We worked through it. We decided to take our stand. And, I talked to some of my African-American friends. I got some really good ones that relied upon them. And basically they said, buddy, we wouldn't mind you changing it. We'd probably prefer it, but because we know your heart and what you're doing, we're good with it. We're good with it. And then the poll showed overwhelmingly, taken by an independent group, that people didn't want to change the name. So
yeah, what's crazy to me about the whole Gator Bait deal, and it bothers me that they don't play that at the games anymore, is that Gator Bait has been part of the Florida fan base for so many years, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this comes about. That just blows my mind. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending, right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. A few more minutes with Buddy Martin here on a Monday. Scott's got a Facebook Live. Shane, since you were talking numbers earlier, what do y'all think about Napier giving the transfer wide receiver the coveted number one? Well, first off, Scott, I don't look at it as a coveted number one. I've never heard that until the last few years. I don't know why anybody would want number one unless that's a number you grew up playing with. These guys that are changing their number from like number 5 to number 1. I've never understood that. I've never heard that. I've never been on a team where guys wanted number 1 because people think that means something. You wear number 1 because that's if you wore it in high school or whatever. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
When you say number 1 in Florida, who do you think of?
Jack Jackson, because I played
me too. And before that, a long time ago, a little linebacker named Jack Card, weighed 160 pounds, wore number 1 for Gene Ellison.
Right.
But that's who I think of.
Yeah, when in my era, nobody even thought about wearing number 1. No. Jack wore number 1 at Moss Point, so he wanted number 1. Yeah. But this about the last couple of years, I think Kadarius Toney wore number 17 or something, and they gave him number 1. I don't buy that one bit. Davis says we need to bring back the Gator Bait cheer. Never once in my life or at UF did I ever see it used as a racist manner. I saw plenty of racism, but never ever in usage of Gator Bait. It needs to be reinstated this fall. I agree with that comment real quick.
Maybe they change presidents. They'll change presidents and bring it back. He's the one that killed it.
Yeah. Buddy, before we let you go, I want to talk to you. I said to JC and watching, Naquan has changed his number from 6 to 5. He wore 5 in high school. I told JC watching a lot of the British Open, and I've been over there and played, and I had a new appreciation once I came back. I don't think there's anything in all sports like the spectacle of 18 at the old course at St. Andrews. I mean, it was phenomenal watching Tiger. We don't know if Tiger's ever going to play there again. Obviously, he will be able to have an opportunity like some of those guys and go play when it's back in 7 or 8 years. But that tournament, what Cam Smith did was one of the greatest sporting events I've ever watched.
It was spectacular. And for the reasons you just said, I mean, number one, all the tradition to have Jack and Tiger there at that event, even though they weren't competing, all the tradition, the Swillicum Bridge, all the things that went on there. I mean, what an event. I watched every minute I could watch of it.
Me too.
By the way, they did their best to hide it from everybody, jumping back and forth from here and there and back and forth. And I got all those channels. I got Peacock, all that. But trying to track it down, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. I mean, it's amazing golf survives because they bounce it around so many different channels. But anyway, that's another story. But I thought it was wonderful. I mean, by the way, I think I picture a guy, Cam Smith, I believe was one. Well, I know he's one of my 3. I know, I said, I said, your guy, and I brought it up. I really wanted Rory to do it because it felt like it was the right thing, the right time. Yeah. But you couldn't take it from the kid. Yeah, that kid, he was unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen anybody putt that good at it. I mean, especially was Tiger when he won the Masters. I mean, the putting was phenomenal. Things he did. I got a new nickname for the Australian Iceman. I mean, he would talk about a guy whose ice water in his veins. Nothing bothered this guy. I don't. They ought to check him, see if he's an alien, because if he's got a heartbeat. Because I mean, that guy was incredible. He just didn't. He didn't miss anything. And Rory didn't do but one thing wrong. What do you think he did wrong? Rory, you got my heart was broken for Rory, but you know what he did, I think, wrong? He tried to be a little conservative. They kept talking about the two putts. Those are all nice, but sometimes you're going to make the big bomb, or something.
I just don't think it wasn't like he was lagging. I mean, he still had the perfect speed. It just didn't go in. It was just one of those days.
Yeah.
He outplayed everybody. But Cam Smith just had that final phenomenal round.
Did you think when he held out, he'd won it? I thought when he held out for the bunker, he'd won it. Right? Rory shot. That's it. He's just won the British Open, But he really, Rory didn't lose it. Cam Smith took it.
Okay, last thing before we get you out of here. This is from Camp. He says, was it me or did the LIV players participating in the Open seem like they were out of place?
They did.
Poulter got booed a lot.
Yep.
DJ's the only one on that tour that can compete with these guys these days.
Right.
It's just a retirement. It's basically early retirement for all those guys. Go make your money. And I really hope there's a way that they can keep them out of the majors from this point on. And I'll be damned, buddy, I'm going to lose my mind if Cam Smith goes to the LIV Tour.
Oh,
Greg Norman being an Australian, he's in his ear.
Yeah, not about that. He'll bring all the pressure he can.
Because Cam Smith lives at Ponte Vedra. He lives over there in Jacksonville at the beach.
Well, they better put a guard on his door. By the way, there were so many Cams there. I figured Cam Newton would show up at some point. I figured Cameron Diaz would be. I couldn't get over the Cams everywhere, man. Wall-to-wall Cams. And by the way, if I could just mention, you brought up the track stuff. I talked to my guy, Lauren Meadows, who points out they did very well. Holly won the hurdles, won the gold. And Anna Hall is third after one day to have top line. And Talitha Diggs is in the semis in the 400. Those guys are amazing. What an unbelievable. And again, congratulations, Hunter Barco, by the way, picked 44th, the Pirates. A lot of Gators will be playing in the bigs next year. Really proud of my guys. Remember a guy named Todd Helton?
Mm-hmm.
He played quarterback for Tennessee. And the guy who took his place in the lineup was Peyton Manning. I remember the day he came in for him. He went on to play a little baseball in Colorado. 17 years, Hall of Fame. I'm going to say, this sounds ludicrous, almost heresy, but this guy, Sterling Thompson, the way he swings the bat, reminds me of Todd Helton.
Yeah, from the left side.
He is. I'm anxious to see him play. I'm happy for him. So, And my guy who writes for me, Kyle Curtis, is one of his best friends, was at a party last night. And he was so happy for his buddy, to get, hey, look at all the ka-ching, right?
No doubt. Buddy, good stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
See you tonight.
I'll talk to you tonight. All right. Thank you, Shane.
That's Buddy Martin. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. Take our final time out. Come back and wrap up this Monday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope you enjoyed today's program. JB said DeChambeau can't compete. I mean, he can here and there. He's had his day. I'm not a fan of his. When he can just hit it wherever he wants in these link style courses. He had a few good days, but DJ's the only one that I would take off that entire tour if I had to pick a team. Hope you enjoyed today's program. Make sure you tell all your friends and family to follow our programs on all the different platforms out there, and we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care. All right, great job.